Start doing it. Recording is in progress. What is up, Restoration Rebels? Andy McCabe here, your Restoration Rebel leader. We got the usual suspect, Mitch Stringer, in the house today, and we have some special guests. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about the Rebel Agreements, Restoration Rebel Agreements. I'm going to share the screen. Boom and boom. Here we go. Agreement number 1. I will protect the value of my services. Offering free services only serves to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. Agreement number 2, I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain the claim process in detail to my clients. I need to rewrite this. I will not hide pricing details or falsify reports. I will never communicate with an adjuster without also communicating with my client. Agreement number 3, I do not believe in competition. The restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. It is our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for. In agreement number 4, I am willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. I am a rebel. I'm a total rebel. All right, stopping share. Had a great time last week at, and by the way, I guess it's Thursday, the 23rd of February, 2023. The heater is broke in my office. I sublet a little office off of a bigger space, and the entire building is without heat today. Bend, Oregon has a high of 23 degrees today. So I'm drinking coffee. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So last week, I want to do a quick recap of the RIA networking event they had in Anaheim. I think it was billed as the AGA networking event, the AGA, Governmental Affairs. Advocacy and Governmental Affairs is a committee, subcommittee, somebody correct me, of the Restoration Industry Association, headed up by none other than Ed Cross, the restoration lawyer. So it was a great, I think we had 155 folks in the room there in Anaheim at ATI's flagship headquarters, their new multi-million-dollar flagship building. It was good to see a bunch of restorers there. I think there's always a cross section. If you look at the board members, the current board members of the RIA, you're going to see a certain type of restorer. They're going to be bigger. They're going to have a bigger chunk of their work is going to come from TPAs, managed repair programs. But that was not the representation in the room. In the room, there were way more independent restorers there, and so we were being a little bit rowdy last week. And Mike Fulton is the outgoing president of Verisk, and he was so kind to show up and let us grill him for about 2.5 hours, 3 hours that morning. But it was good. I walked away from that event thinking that, I think we might finally be headed in the right direction as an industry. The RIA historically, they used to be a whole lot more vocal than they have been in recent times, but I think we're turning a corner. I am interested in hearing. We'll see who shows up today. How many? Mitch, are you a member of the Restoration Industry Association, or have you ever been?
Yeah, we're currently a member.
Okay. How long have you been a member of RIA?
Only myself, just the past year or so since I've been with disaster response.
Okay. And I hadn't been a member for a very, very long time. But I renewed my membership. I'm now a member. Back when this rebel thing started in 2015 or so, one of the reasons that we even came together as a group was the existing leadership of our industry, RIA being a big part of that, was just asleep at the wheel. No one was advocating for the restorer in the way that we think they should be advocated for. So we said, fuck it, we're going to advocate for ourselves. And that's what we did. And in the ensuing years, since we started this rabble rouser group of ours, I think the RIA has taken notice and said, hey, we have a problem. We don't have, A, we don't have the ear of the restorer, and B, we don't have, we're not advocating for the restorers in a real way. And that is reflected in the membership levels, which is, as of today, about 1,500 companies are members of the RIA. And if you think there's about 20,000 real restorers in the United States, 1,500 is not a representative sample. So the RIA is having an existential crisis in this moment. And I'm probably going to hear some shit about it. This video will be rebroadcast on my YouTube channel. And as soon as that hits, that's going to, people are going to get their tail feathers all ruffled up. But that's my job. That's what I see. This is my job. My job is to, hey, we got a problem here. Let's talk about it. I don't care if you feel like I'm sticking my finger in your eye. This needs to be talked about. The RIA does not represent the average restorer at this moment in time. But with the AGA, the Advocacy and Government Affairs Committee, that has some legs. That has the potential to do a whole lot of good things for our industry. And in forefront in my mind is the potential to have actual lobbying happening at the state level nationally. Right now, though, the problem is with 1,500 members, and a membership costs what, $40 a month. There's not enough money to hire lobbyists to stay on top of the things that are happening in the legislations across the country. They can't even hope to, you can't even field one lobbyist for with the overhead that they have. So I was approached after this meeting last Wednesday by a section of the leadership of the RIA, and they said, Andy, we've got a membership problem. And I said, yeah, you do. And they asked me for my help. But my question back was, what has the RIA done for the average restorer lately? What have you done for us lately? And that is a question that it could not adequately answer. But here we have ourselves. Yeah, we have this little niche of us, right? We get together, we bitch and we moan, and we raise some hell. But how much effect can we have as a group without joining a bigger group with more influence? So that's my question to those of us in the room right now. There's not a whole lot of us here. I'm gonna have got the Facebook page up over here. No one's commenting yet. So short, very, very small sample. Mitch, what's your take on the advocacy for the restorer in this day and time, right in this moment of time? Where do we stand? Is the RIA viable? Is who is best suited or best placed to advocate on behalf of the restoration industry in this day and age?
Well, I came through the industry and probably should have pursued it further, but I came up through it when IICRC was an infant. Carpet Cleaners of the Northwest was the kind of the dominant power, and they kind of came through and got together and said, hey, we're we're going to make this one, and we're going to represent you. We're going to represent you in your interests and the clients.
That was the promise. Okay.
That's the promise. Yeah. I see that things have changed a little bit, especially with the way they're writing things. And so it gave traction for others to come up in the industry and go, okay, you know what? They're not doing the job they said they were going to do. We're going to take over. That's fine. And you can do that. But once, you get into the big lobbyist, and you got to quite, as well as I do, the guy with the biggest checkbook is the one that's going to make the rules in this industry.
Need some more links?
Yep.
So that's what I'm seeing. If we don't all get on board and support each other, we're going to be single entities out there. And what they do fear, what every global institution or government or any industry, they fear, the common goal of a common man getting together and making a voice, and a voice that could be. And so if we're going to be a member and we're going to produce these things, then we got to get active with them. Now, everybody wants something for nothing. Hey, I gave you my $40. What are you doing? Okay.
40 whole dollars.
Well, yeah, that's fine. 40 is not a lot of money, in the big scope of things. I think everybody could agree. But at the same time, how many times you voiced that concern? Once a year at the convention? Right.
At the convention that only a subsection of 1,500 members is going to show up to. Yep.
Yeah. So, our membership has been messed up because we were a member of CORE. And so there were some things going on there. I guess they got that worked out. So, back in with the IRA, I saw it for the longest time, never joined it. Just the companies I worked with just weren't interested. But, you need to sign up with something. You need to have something going. So my belief is, we got to separate ourselves. We got to get active. If you don't get active, it's going nowhere.
Well, it's been a lot with it.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes. No, it's perfect and perfectly valid. I'm sorry, I'm going to mute you, Scott, real quick. Perfectly valid point. And everyone needs it. What we're lacking collectively is perspective. We don't know, I don't know, sitting in my seat in Bend, Oregon, what your experience is today in Montana, right? Mitch, you're in Montana, right?
I'm actually in Clarkston, Washington, right across the river from Idaho. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Disaster Response is an Idaho-based company.
Idaho.
And we're expanding pretty rapidly. And so we do want some representation. We do want some people out there that are going to join this organization and help, one another grow. If you don't grow, you're going to go backwards. That's how it is nowadays. There's no, I'm going to sustain with 1.5% growth and be fine for the next 30 years like companies used to be back in the 40s and 50s. Back in those days, if you're not actively gaining 10% a year, you're going to die.
Yeah, your time is limited for sure. So here we find ourselves again. I feel like we're having a very similar conversation as we were starting to have in 2015 with the Restoration Rebels. Is who represents us, and more importantly than that, who do we want to represent us? I am seeing, now more than ever, the splintering of our voice and our influence. In that, if we still show a willingness to stab each other in the back, and take part in programs that are not, they might benefit our individual companies in the short term, but they in the long term they take away the value of the entire industry. If we still have people willing to do that, that's a problem. And we will continue to have a lack of unity that is required to actually have influence. So here's my pitch for this moment today. If you're not a member of any professional association, why not the RIA? That's it. Join the RIA. Or if you're happy with where your business is today and you're happy with where the industry stands in the public's eye today, don't do shit. But I'm guessing within the reach of my voice, that's going to apply to very, very few people hearing this message. So if you don't stand for something, anything, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. Is that how that goes? Be a part of something. Absolutely be a part of the Restoration Rebels. We'd love to have you. We love to have unity in this group. But at the end of the day, we are just a Facebook group. We are not a national association. We don't have an official board of directors or presidents or anything like that. It's just essentially me and whoever else shows up spitting into a microphone and voicing our grievances. To get real stuff done, we need to join a real organization. And that's why I continue to be a part of the RIA. And I would hope that everyone here considers becoming a member of the RIA. Okay? Fair enough.
I will say, Andy.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I will tell you this here, and this is, I think also there's a real disconnect. Growing up, when I was in the younger days of the industry and all, I thought it was kind of like I said in the chat group the other day, it's Coke or Pepsi. I thought it was IIC or RIA. I thought they were kind of like the same thing, just different branding. But what most people don't realize is the IICRC is kind of like the textbook, but they're just there to write the book. The RIA is who actually speaks for you, and they work in conjunction with the IICRC and are on their standards and all. But I think there's a big disconnect in a lot of people where they think, if I got to choose between one group or the other, I'm going to go IICRC because they're the ones that get all the certifications out. And I think that's why the RIA has so much issues, is because people don't understand that it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not a separate, it's not a combative relationship with each other. And I'll tell you right now, I've went to AMRT through the IICRC, and then I've also taken a mold remediation course through the RIA. I 100% think the RIA teaching of mold remediation is far superior, because the RIA teaches you to get rid of the mentality of, indoor, outdoor, environmental quality and stuff. And they say, they really enforce strict guidelines, for actual tangible goals for validating whether or not a mold job is completed. And I think if I remember correctly, it's visually clean smelling, no smell of musk, a plus or minus 300 or 400 count of aspergillus compared to your outside, with zero tolerance key marker spores like Stachybotrys, Cladiosporin, things like that. And if you're a restoration company and you say, these are the goals we're aiming for, and if we don't reach them, we'll re-clean, that's justifiable. That holds up in court. If you're just like, well, my goal is to make sure that your indoor air is cleaner than the outdoor air, but I have 1,000 count inside my building and it's 100 count outside because it's winter, I have a mold problem. But in the summertime, it's 4,000 outside. I don't have a mold problem. It's too much of a wavy line, and you could still, you could have cleaner air in the building than outside, but have 200 spores of Stachybotrys. That's not a healthy goal, and I feel like the IRC is too scared to have a hard line set on it. That's why you want people like the RA taking what the IIC says and actually not just regurgitating it, but actually understanding what the principles are and helping us contractors come up with proper scopes and proper game plans with how to utilize the standards to be successful in our industry.
Right. And we could try to draw a whole bunch of analogies between the IICRC, what the IICRC is versus what the RIA is. The biggest problem going back to the year 2000, or maybe a little bit before that, was this pissing match that occurred between the then ASCR and the IICRC, and they both wanted to be the certifying body. They both wanted to be the smartest organization and the certifying body, and the fights over who really came up with the S500 and all this stuff. I don't want to get too deep into that because I frankly don't know. All I know is what I was told and what I learned getting into this industry in the year 2000. I got my MRT, WRT, ASD through the ASCR. And then, as I worked for a couple franchises along the way in my career, and I had to retake those classes, but they had to be the IICRC version.
And I mean, unfortunately, at this juncture and at the stage that this industry is in right now, if you want accreditation and you want to be recognized and be able to stand your ground against an adjuster or anybody, it has to be through the IICRC to be recognized. Like they don't.
Well, I'd argue that my contractor's license is enough to argue with an adjuster over how to do my job.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you're trying to, certify a water technician for like anything, like if you're, like IICRC is what everyone looks for. And even if the RIA has a far superior program, it's not looked at as a superior one. And I mean, I think, and like you said, in the early 2000s, they were battling out to see who would be the standard. And I think instead now they're coming to realize we need to work with the standard IICRC stuff and help explain this book reads like science or stereo instructions. Here's what it's actually saying. And let's defend our contractors to validate that what their interpretation of this book is actually correct.
And I would argue that the standard becomes increasingly irrelevant if you're being rolled over by TPAs and carriers who are just pushing an agenda. And the carrier and TPA agenda is not about the technically correct way to set up a containment. Their agenda is about how to steal money from the restorer on a daily basis. And the IICRC or the RIA classes taught nothing about that. So the politics is the most important part of this whole deal at this date and time. In the technical, being technically correct, who cares? I don't. I know there's a lot of people out there would rather be technically correct than actually correct. But now we're talking about we need to come together as an industry and get behind a standard. And I think we've established that. We agree. I think we can agree for the most part that IICRC, S500, S700 now, and whatever else, that can be our standard. But that's not enough to really change things in the real world, how we do day in, day out. So we could go way down the road.
Yeah, the IICRC will never go to bat. They are not an organization that's going to go to bat for the contractor.
It's like asking a paraplegic to swing a baseball bat. They don't have the gear. They're never going to do that because they don't have the capability. I'm sorry for all the paraplegics out there.
And you're absolutely right as far as the TIAs are concerned. Like, if you're doing a 2-story house and it has an open staircase, you're supposed to calculate out the hallway upstairs as well and your air supply. The TPAs and all them, they don't care. It's the only floor that affected was the first floor. We're not, you oversized your equipment. No, I did it actually correct. They just ignore the book anyways because
and we've allowed that as an industry. We've allowed. It's like if we were electricians, we'd be the adjusters are telling the electricians how many amp fuse to use on any given project. That they're not licensed to make that call. They're not educated to make that call. It's not their freaking call. But we have, as an industry, we've let them start to make those calls. I want to hear from Lou. Lou, I met last week at RIA. Lou, do you have the capability of unmuting yourself? I want to hear your take because I know Lou is old school. Lou is how I think he'll be the first to tell you he's old school, original, like OG guy. What's your take, Lou, on the current state of our industry in the in regards to the RIA?
Well, I think hello, everybody. I think
Hey, buddy. Good to see you or have you,
likewise.
hear you.
I think is in simple terms, I guess, is the IICRC is that is the standard. They write the standards. I am a 35 plus year supporter of the whole thing. I think that's the bachelor's degree, if you will, for our trade, for our industry.
Yep.
I think whether it was ASCR with the Water Loss Institute or the National Institute of Disaster Restoration, their CR program way back in the day, pre-RIA. I think those programs were the graduate school, if you will, the doctorates, the master's programs, and no disrespect to all the other educational guys that are doing all the basic certifications, but I definitely think that there's a place for both. Yes, I do remember the politics between the two organizations, back in the day. I'd like to think
damn near destroyed both the organizations, if I remember correctly.
Well, and Andy, I told you my story. I mean, life circumstances, although I was working, really kind of took me away from being as involved in our industry as I'm going to get again. But the IICRC with the revisions to S500 and the fact that there's finally some type of industry practice, if you will, as far as placing equipment. I mean, we've never had that in years past. It was my word against a claims adjuster's opinion, I guess, as far as what's the proper amount of equipment to use, or how come you use so little compared to your colleague down the street uses so much. At least now there's guidelines, whether it's lineal footage, at least a starting point. So I'm excited. I mean, why? Because that kind of stuff, what does it do? There's an independent, neutral third party that's pretty much giving me the tools to defend, what I'm putting on a job.
They're setting what a yardstick is. They're setting a standard, and you can as long as you have a standard, you can be measured against a standard, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, misrepresentation or misinterpretation of that standard notwithstanding, that there is an absolute place and need for that standard. But if we don't follow it in the same way, if we're not in lockstep, if we're not in unison as an industry of how to apply that standard, we are going to repeatedly find ourselves at the mercy of those with ulterior motives to misinterpret and high incentives to misinterpret that standard to their benefit and to our detriment.
Agreed. I think on our end, what we all need to do in our own backyard, in our own communities, is to that whole analogy that we're colleagues first, competitors second. Whether it's in my community, your community, anybody else's community. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Hey, we're all running businesses here.
But yeah, I think if we all get together and share our experiences and, I don't know, solidarity, we've got to become an army.
Yes.
It's the only way it's going to work.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. All right, Luke, good to hear from you. Thanks for being here. I'm going to shift gears. Yeah, man, absolutely. Anytime. We're here every week, every Thursday, except for last week, obviously. 1 p.m. Pacific. So I want to introduce Super Stratum. And I'm not going to speak for you guys, but when I hear about legitimately how do I say this? I'm stumbling. Part of it's because I'm cold. There's technology that comes. I see a bunch of shit that comes across my desk every day sometimes, but sometimes it's like, oh, this is something real. This is important. This is a new, better iteration of the existing way of how we do things. So what Superstratum is a lot of things, but it's in the mold space regarding mold eradication and mold prevention. And the technology was compelling enough for me to say, hey, why don't you guys come on to the Restoration Rebel podcast, whatever, roundtable. I want you guys to say in your words what you guys are and how you guys propose to do the mold thing differently. Because there's a lot of guys doing it wrong. There's a lot of guys doing just using bleach, right? Just using the mold is gold approach, which doesn't help anyone. And what I liked about, and I'm going to let you guys talk here in a second, what I liked about your guys' approach when you approached me and we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago was it was the health of the indoor air environment, the health of the occupants of these buildings was paramount in your approach, and the testing and it was about public health. It wasn't about making money. And so I'm a huge fan of doing the right thing and making money as a result, instead of setting out to make some money and then trying to pretend it's the right thing. But I think you guys are really onto something. So Restoration Rebels, all y'all are going to hear this on replay. Open your ears, and I'll give it to you guys. Introduce yourselves and just go.
Sure.
You got 25 minutes.
Okay. I assume you guys can hear me.
Yes,
This is John Miles. I'm the Chief Science Officer for Spring Bayou. Spring Bayou is the name of our company. Superstratum is the name of our brand. And so, our focus and our motto, I guess, within the Spring Bayou is, remediators, we hope to think that they do a great job. And I would say a large portion of you, yes, you follow the IICRC rules. However, I think where we've got lost in the whole process is, yes, we have to remediate the mold, but the mold naturally was producing spores once it was active in that house. And before they've called the remediator, it's been spread through the superhighway of the HVAC system. And so those spores have been spread. But what's worse than the spores are the mycotoxins. And that's what I believe that most people don't understand. Mold doesn't make you sick.
I learned something in our conversation. I'm mold remediation certified. I've been working in this space for 22 freaking years. But I learned that my understanding of mycotoxins was insufficient to describe the real problem. I did not know that a mycotoxin, which is what mold uses to outcompete its competitors, right? Outcompete, that's redundant, but mycotoxins are how it kills its competition in order to do its thing. I did not know that mycotoxins could be aerosolized separate from the spore itself. So that was news to me. So go ahead.
Yeah, you've probably heard that it's a secondary metabolite and how it's produced and stuff. But think of it this way. If you've seen the analogy of the mold spore looking like a dandelion that pops up, the minute that spore gets shot off, those mycotoxins are shot off as well. Mm-hmm. So in essence,
would you call this secondary chemistry, or would you call it secondary biology?
I don't think it is a secondary chemistry. I actually think I think it was created to be the actual, it's initialized first. And so I want you to think of it, that spore, when it's shot off, it's kind of like Superman in his pod. Doesn't know exactly where it's going to go, but it's going to have this cloud that goes with it. Okay. And then when it finally lands onto some particular surface, that cloud actually drapes over that area. Now, majority of those areas are going to have bacteria on it. Okay. So the cloud drops on it. what is penicillin? What is it used in our body as an antibacterial?
Antibacterial. Yep.
Exactly. So what is it doing to that surface? It is antibacterial on that surface to push that bacteria away, to push the dust mites away, to push multiple competitors away, so that spore can land on that. If it's an organic surface like a
Oh
and then
no! There you are. There you are. We got you back. You cut out
yeah.
there for a second, but keep
Well,
going.
my daughter called in, and that's I saw it. I had to hit off. Yeah, I'll tell her she made the podcast.
There you go.
Excellent. So that's what that defense mechanism, as well as its next protective system of that spore, and that's what it's meant to do. Okay, so you guys have eradicated, you've done a great job of eliminating that active mold. You've scrubbed the air. You've probably pulled out some of that spores that were there and that have come in there. But those mycotoxins, okay, it is a VOC, okay, a volatile organic compound. Think of it a little bit like water, okay? So when it's cool enough, it can be sticky and stick to surfaces, stick to the HVAC system in there, stick to surfaces on the ground all around. But then when it gets a little bit warmer, just like water being maybe a little liquid, it becomes a gas and it evaporates. Okay, now it's airborne. Okay, and so that airborne, that's the reason why when people are sick and they get these mycotoxins, they get it into their lungs because they've evaporated and they've gone and
So
breathed them
it's
in.
not a mold infection at that point.
No,
And that was
it is not
part of my misunderstanding of the process is, well, they got mold in their lungs and then the mold took hold. But that's not really what's happening. It's poisons. It's VOC poisons. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Now, not everybody's immune system, can get rid of this, a portion. That's the reason why probably these remediators have gone in and the wife is just really complaining to the husband, like, I don't even know what's wrong with her, and that is because of that immune system. That person, the one person, is highly affected by those toxins in their body. And so, we are working with, different doctors and different things and labs to be able to first check their blood, check their urine, see if those toxins are in there. Then we have instrumentation that we can go into the house and actually check for the mycotoxins that may still be in that home. And then we'll have ways to validate it once you've used the superstratum system. And now that it's been clean of those. Now, we don't try to change the standard of care. I just want, everybody to know it's not a spray and pray type of product and that you can just easily, get rid of these mycotoxins. It's not that.
And you guys, you talked about genetics as part of the vulnerability. Is there's a certain subset of the human species with a certain mutation in what's called the MTFR gene. About 25% of the population has this particular mutation, which gives them a very much more drastic immune response to these types of toxins. Yeah. That's correct. And there's a lot of different symptoms that from brain fog to just being always sick. There's legions and there's multiple symptoms that kind of come out of this. Lyme disease is slowly becoming where their doctors are pointing to that, but it's actually now they're finding that actually it's coming from the mycotoxins themselves. And so a lot of the pathogen type doctors that are out there, these they are now putting, I guess, the dots they're of where these particular issues where they can't identify a problem. Now they're finding, you're living in a home, a toxic environment that is creating these toxins and you are breathing them in. Okay. So I believe we've established that you guys understand the problem at a deep level. So talk to me about how superstratum and the superstratum system, that approach, how is that approach novel and better than conventional approaches to mold remediation?
Well, if you're following the guidelines like the gentleman's, you were all talking about before, we want you to continue to still do that. But once that particular containment area has been identified, that the live mold has gone, you had your inspector or your environmentalist in there to give you the green light. This is where we want to now basically think of this treating the air, treating the places that you didn't visually see. And that's where our superstratum system, and you can go to our website and superstratum.co and read about the three products that we have, but we typically will fall with a chemistry called HOCl, and we basically get our humidity levels up. We also, the hypochlorous acid will be a first knockdown of the spores and different products or different VOCs that may be in the air. And then we set off our chlorine dioxide bombs with a unique delivery system that allows you to go around to different areas in the containment as well as outside the containment, because we also want to do the rest of the house.
Sure.
And then you can apply our protectant, which is under a smart polymer coating. So those surfaces now are protected for future spores that may land on there or anything that you didn't visually see. Because, we're trying to treat the whole environment now. So we know that particular person who is always sick, you've got to go up and above to really get that home detoxed, out.
Yeah. I'm going to type that URL. You said superstratum.co.
.co, yes.
All right. There it is in the link. I put it in the Facebook page. So you get hydrogen peroxide or hydrogen dioxide?
No. Hypochlorous acid is the first technology.
There it is. That's in my notes. Okay. Yep.
Hypochlorous acid. That's a 500 parts per million solution. It's, water type viscosity, so very easily to apply. And then our chlorine dioxide delivery system is called our superstratum remediation bombs. That releases chlorine dioxide. We asked the environment be contained for 12 hours, so no pets, plants, and people need to be in that environment. Mold didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to be eradicated in that environment we need 12 hours, so you just not going to come in there. I've seen many products, people, what I call the spray and pray. And, it gives a bad name to this industry because of those types of products just do not, remediate, the toxins in that air. And then we have our final workhorse product, which is our smart polymer coating. It's a non-encapsulating coating. So we put on all those surfaces where that issue was, as well as any other places, typically crawl spaces, basements, surfaces that typically can grow mold because of either moisture or product. And we offer, with the right contractor, we offer a 10-year warranty that no mold will grow on those surfaces.
Okay,
that
so
product's been applied.
we're gonna do the usual. We're gonna scrub the air. We're gonna remove the physical. We're gonna physically remove what we can see and what we can get at. We're gonna do a chlorine dioxide and hypochloric acid treatment of the air and bomb for the surfaces. And then we're going to apply an antimicrobial. What would you call that application? Antimicrobial. And it tell me, I was fascinated by the ability of that sealant, for lack of a better word, it's a sealant, to change its physical properties based on moisture content. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, this chemistry is built around a smart polymer. It's very unique is that it uses water to activate its ingredients. And naturally, the water is what activates the mold and its growth. So you put it on a surface, okay, it lays there clear. We do have a UV indicator so you can identify where it's at. But if mold spore lands onto that surface, even at 10% humidity, basically that film, okay, there becomes bioavailable. Okay. And then it eliminates its future growth. Basically, we'll eliminate that right there on that surface. So and so it uses the moisture in the air at 10%, or say you had it sprayed on a cavity inside your wall and you had a flood or a leak, any water that runs down, the spores that had been into that wall long before can't activate, because that antimicrobial comes to that surface and repels any of that future growth.
Wow. And for
And
the
the-
right
and the great
for the
thing-
right contractor who's doing it right, and I'm sure there's a qualification process and quality control, you're going to guarantee some applications for 10 years.
That's correct. That's
Wow.
correct.
Wow.
And so, and these are on, these areas are, we're talking about is because this product is interacting. Now, there's a lot of products out there that may, you say they put in antimicrobials into their coating. The problem is antimicrobials have to migrate. And if the coating is encapsulating, then it can't be antimicrobial, because the antimicrobials can't migrate to the surface, because that's where the mold spore is going to land.
Yeah, it won't be activated, and it just won't do its thing because it's not in
That
proximity.
there's like
It's not in direct
think of it
contact.
like icebergs, right? They'll be like the top of an iceberg, and so they may work on that surface. But if what I call done polymers, if they're a typical interior coating or something like that, and then you can't go by and wipe it off with your hand, the white, encapsulated product, then it can't be a true antimicrobial product. It's only going to work on the surface. That is the misconception that a lot of people put. But antimicrobials have to migrate. They have to move, okay, to be able to be available. And that's what our smart polymer coating is much different than the competitors, encapsulating coatings out there that are white, have different antimicrobials or titanium dioxide or, in them. That's what it makes
Sure.
our.
Okay. All right. I think we've got the gist of it. I think most people, at least in the room here currently, they are not lost. You guys understand
great.
exactly what we're talking about here. So I want to open up some questions. We got Max, we got Mitch. Joe looks like he had to drop out. But we got three people. We got Lou, Max, and Mitch. And if you're watching on the Facebook channel right now, there's a little bit of a delay, but if you have a question, put it in the chat there. Guys, do you have any questions for Mr. John? And don't be shy, because what's the point?
Sure. I got this is Mitch Stringer here. Hey, who are you guys recommending for a mold class? I'm getting all kinds of
A mold class. Okay. For training.
mold,
okay.
Yes, mold training. Okay, so you're getting all kinds of ads and, hey, we're the best, we're the greatest, CTI, RIA, IICRC. Other people out there, Rainbow even sends me emails still going, hey, we got a mold class, we're like the bestest ever.
Bestest. I love it.
So who are you recommending to follow up on with the technicians and get them some good training?
Sure. Well,
Great
we've been
question.
working with Normie, has been one of the partners that we have been.
And that's an acronym, NORMI. What's that stand
putting
for?
together a white paper right now. Normie, NORMI, the National Organization for Remediators, Mold Inspectors.
Okay.
And so they have some classes in Louisiana. They have about 7,000 members within their particular organization. And, our focus has really been on the health of the home, but we realized that we had to work with, people to be able to promote this product and to really educate, the mycotoxin, side of things, because it is not being endorsed. I just got back from a conference that was in Austin, Texas. And, we had a really big turnout there. And that was one of the classrooms we had was on educating about mycotoxins. So I understand perfectly, Mitch, trying to partner, our whole thing, I kind of do most of the training of the currently with remediators or even home builders that are trying to put our product inside their home beforehand. But that I would say right now, probably Norman will be presenting most of these classes that we will have in the mycotoxin cleaning aspect, as well as the application of our products.
Okay. So Normie is an association, obviously. And should restorers that are doing this sort of work think about becoming members of Normie at this point? What's your take on on that association?
You asking John or
I'm asking. Yes.
everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that has been the one organization that has seen our technology and they saw the flaw, I guess, within the environment. So it may be self-serving a little bit, but they saw this at the same time that we came out with these products. So it kind of married a little bit together, but we want to associate with all the different organizations if they're interested, and we will partner with anybody, through this process of, because ultimately it's the client that needs, we make money at it, but if we solve the problem for these particular clients, then ultimately, it's going to serve everybody. Our system will help, remediate, bring different remediators that you're separating yourself from your competitors. But we're just trying to bring the best technology to get the job done.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, restorers have a tendency to become, they don't start out this way, but they become jacks of all trades. And that inevitably means they're masters of none. So I'm a huge fan of niching down, becoming really good at one thing and making that happen. And what I've seen over the years is you might have a mitigation contractor or a mediator, a restoration guy. It just clicks with him that this mold thing is a real problem. I can get really good at this mold thing. And they shift out. They don't consider themselves restorers anymore. They consider themselves remediators. So I would say, if you're doing fire, water, mold, sewer, biohazard, all this stuff, you are probably not a great fit for something like superstratum and the implementation of that whole system. But if mold is all you do, and the indoor air environment is important to you and your clients, that is where I would say, you correct me if I'm wrong, that is a better fit culturally and otherwise of a company for something like this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, we, as our website and as we promote this more and more, we're looking for people that want to partner with us naturally to apply this. We're basically be a lead generator, of opportunities, because a lot of times our customers, right now they're actually applying this by themselves because they've had 3 different remediators, big name remediators, come in and they just made it worse.
And they struck out.
So,
yeah.
And so, we've followed our particular protocol. We definitely say, if you've got active mold, you need to use a professional. But if you cannot find it, they follow this process and, let's get the air right.
Because
and move
it is
forward.
that new. Okay.
That's correct.
Who else is operating in this space? Good, bad, or indifferent? I'm not saying who else is doing it well, but who else is operating in this space? For who are your competitors, for lack of a better word?
When it comes to the mycotoxin, which is really our focus, really no one. We've seen, some legacy systems that were based off of hydrogen peroxide and stuff. Hydrogen peroxide does not have the ability to break up down the VOC of mycotoxins. It has to be a very oxidative type product.
Really?
And so, yes.
What you're talking about is it's not pH at that point. It's
No.
oxidation.
Yes, it is complete oxidation of unsaturation. these toxins have different cyclic, different rings to them. And so there are unsaturation on there. And that's what, the chlorine dioxide as well as the hypochlorous acid technology attacks. Much different than what hydrogen peroxide or peracetic acid or ozone does. Now, I will say ozone would be maybe the closest, okay, but it does not have the ability to do in a liquid form or a white form, because our systems are one for cleaning and then one for the bombing. So, you're trying to get the surfaces clean, because remember I told you the mycotoxins are sticky in certain times, and then they're also airborne a majority of the time in your HVAC system. So you are trying to you have to work both environments,
Absolutely.
of this toxic home.
Absolutely. Well, great. I am super stoked that we finally connected. You guys, I was finally available to have you guys
Yep.
on. I apologize for standing you up last week.
So
But yeah, so I invite you, you and Scott, to both stay in the group, get into the Restoration Rebel group, and just sit around. So keep your eyes and ears open. And I want you to actively make yourself available for questions. We have an enormous amount of misinformation and disinformation in this industry, especially around mold and mycotoxins. So I would love to have you guys be a resource for us to fact check and come up with some innovative solutions, because God knows we see some weird shit in this industry.
Yeah. Well,
great. Yeah, go ahead.
My email address, if you want me to give it out on the air, I have no problem. But
yes,
it's
please.
jmiles@springbayou.co.
Okay. And I'm going to put that in the Facebook chat here. J Miles, you said Miles?
Yes, sir.
At
Spring Bayou.
Spring BAYOU.
.co.
There we go. Perfect.
And
copy
you reach
that,
out,
paste it over here.
You can reach out to me there, and then I'll call you. If you leave your number and call you back, we can have a discussion and deep dive into the technology, or just want to talk about anything. So
perfect. Sounds great. John, thanks for being here. Scott, thanks for making this happen. Any last questions for these folks before we sign off? Get about 10 seconds here. What the one thing we can control, if we can control anything, is our own education and our own expertise. And that's why learning new things, learning the best processes, the best SOPs, that is our number one defense against the nonsense that we see day in, day out coming from all sides of this industry. So I invite the Restoration Rebel community and whoever else is seeing this, I invite you to use Superstratum and I'm sorry, there it is, Spring Bayou, as a resource when it comes to these types of things, mold and mycotoxin stuff. This is real. This mycotoxin, indoor air toxicity is a real thing. And I think it's a shadow problem. It's a problem that as a nation or as a species, I think we've tried to point the finger at a lot of different problems, but we find ourselves, oh, it's this, it's that, and we're not, and we're still sick, right? I'm pretty sure that the house that I rent has a mold problem. I'm pretty scared to actually test for it, but who was the CEO of your company, John?
Seth Jones.
Seth. So Seth was, when we had Seth on the horn, he said there's a lot of misdiagnosis and people are having actual emotional responses, you know, because they're being triggered by a mycotoxin reaction. But it's manifesting as depression. It's manifesting as SADS. It's manifesting as these other things. And you have a lot of people, and I think I know some personally, that have tried all kinds of medications, all kinds of treatments, and all kinds of other things because they don't understand that they have a mold problem. Okay, we're going to go a little bit long because I want you to talk about how do we diagnose this stuff. You had, I think, airanswers.com was one of the solutions that you provide. So tell me about diagnostics. How do we know we have a problem?
Right. Well, the Air Answer is a separate organization, but
Right.
they have been able to develop a particular, a piece of equipment that you can set into the environment. You can set it for 5 days, so it gives you more of a real life, test environment, and that cell that it collects this on it. And when they test it, it collects it and tests by DNA. And so there's different cursors that are given off when mold is active and alive. And so they're able to actually identify live mold, 5 different genera of the main types of mold that are in homes, and then about 4 different mycotoxins that those active molds like to produce, or that produce. So, and they do this all on a DNA level. And so that is a company that we work with that can identify that. And then once the remediation is done and the superstratum system is done, we can come back with that and validate that those mycotoxins are now removed. And we're also working,
remediated.
That's correct. And then we're actually working with labs to actually test the human in their urine that the mycotoxin levels are now being reduced. So we're trying to do this, really that's who the patient that we're curing. The home is important because that patient can't get, but ultimately that is the goal, is to fix that patient. Okay. And so because, this is not once again, it's not just a one product, one company type thing. It's a team, a partner with multiple types of organizations, a lab, a doctor, the equipment, and then the system of superstratum that can get this now particular home environment, or even in a building, a business, clean, and so that those people are not sick anymore.
Nice. Awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your willingness to come out here and talk with us. I'm sure there's members of the Restoration Rebel community that will absolutely nerd out with you guys once you guys get connected, and that's what I like to do. So the website is superstratum.co. I misspelled it once in the chat here. Email address jmiles@springbayou.co. That's over here in the Facebook page as well. John or Scott, please send me some links so I can put together the blurb on the YouTube channel and make sure people are pointing in the right direction. But otherwise, it's great to have you and everyone else that showed up. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next
Thanks
week.
a lot.
Thank you.
And, yeah, absolutely. And be good. This week, I want to challenge the Restoration Rebel community. Reach out to a, air quotes, competitor in your market. Reach out to somebody across the street doing what you're doing and ask them to lunch. That's my challenge to you. And I'll see who did it next week. Be good to each other, and we'll see you.